Who holds the record for the highest presidential approval rating in U.S. history? When this question comes up, many people might immediately think of one name, Franklin D. Roosevelt. After all, he not only stabilized the U.S. economy during the Great Depression but also led the country to victory in World War II. Being elected president 4 times, a feat unmatched in American history, clearly shows the depth of public support he once enjoyed. However, actual polling data might surprise you. According to statistics from Gallup, the president with the highest approval rating in U.S. history wasn't T. Roosevelt. In fact, the title belongs to someone else, someone whose global reputation today is highly controversial. That person is George W. Bush, commonly known as W. or Bush Jr. During his first year in office, the United States was struck by the shocking and tragic events of 9/11. In the face of an unprecedented national crisis, President Bush responded with remarkable firmness and decisiveness. His leadership in that moment earned him overwhelming public approval, and his approval rating skyrocketed to an astounding 92%, the highest ever recorded for any U.S. president. But fate had a twist in store. The same president who was once hailed as a heroic leader during a national emergency would later be blamed for steering the country away from post-Cold War prosperity and into the 2008 global financial meltdown. Many Americans began to see him as the primary architect of that recession, with some even branding him as the worst president in U.S. history. So how did such a polarizing figure rise to the pinnacle of political power? To understand that, we need to take a closer look at the powerful political dynasty behind him, the Bush family. The Bush family holds significant clout in American politics. It all began with Samuel Bush, who started out as a humble technician. Through hard work and skill, he earned the trust of a prominent banker, eventually married into the banker's family, and with his father-in-law's backing took over a company that would later make him a major player in the American steel industry. His son, Prescott Bush, built upon that foundation. He attended Yale University, where he became a member of the secretive and elite Skull and Bones Society, long rumored to have deep ties with America's political elite. Prescott went on to become a U.S. Senator, further boosting the family's political influence. The third generation brought forth George Herbert Walker Bush, better known as George H. W. Bush or Bush Sr. His political career was extensive, serving in key government roles before ultimately becoming the 41st President of the United States. Under his leadership, the Bush family solidified its position as a major force in American politics. Against this backdrop, George W. Bush's path to power was almost preordained. Groomed from a young age, he was the heir to a political legacy, and yet, it was a unique set of historical circumstances that truly catapulted him to national prominence. Today, his presidency remains one of the most hotly debated chapters in modern American history. As the eldest son of the Bush family, George W. Bush's path to adulthood didn't exactly follow the shining tradition people expected from such a prestigious lineage. Despite being born into privilege, his early years were far from impressive. He seemed to have inherited neither the intelligence nor the composure of his ancestors. Like many children from America's political dynasties, young George was enrolled in elite private schools designed to groom the future upper class. But the results were disappointing. His grades consistently hovered around the barely passing C level, and he even once scored a 0 on an English exam. Not exactly the kind of academic record you'd expect from a future president. Had he come from an ordinary background, grades like that would have made it difficult to get into even a mid-tier college. But George W. Bush was born into the royal flush of American politics. Thanks to the immense influence of the Bush family, he not only got into Yale University, one of the Ivy League's most prestigious schools, but also gained entry into the ultra-exclusive secret society known as Skull and Bones, which has long been rumored to be a playground for America's most powerful elites. This kind of gilded path created a mindset in Bush where effort seemed optional. He became comfortable relying on connections rather than merit, and showed little respect for hard work or personal responsibility. His college years played out like those of a stereotypical rich kid, more focused on partying than preparing for the real world. After graduating from Yale, Bush faced his first serious crossroads: military service. It was the height of the Vietnam War, and the U.S. had deployed over 500,000 troops to Southeast Asia. His father, George H. W. Bush, had set a heroic precedent volunteering to serve in World War II, flying bombing missions over Japan, and surviving as the lone crew member when his plane was shot down. That story was a badge of honor for the family. But George W. Bush took a very different route. Using his family's influence, he avoided frontline combat altogether. Despite not fully meeting the physical requirements, he secured a spot in the Texas Air National Guard, a path that virtually guaranteed he wouldn't be sent to war. Even in this comparatively cushy military role, Bush's laid-back attitude didn't change. He spent more time drinking and partying than fulfilling his duties. Eventually, his superiors grew frustrated and removed him from flight status, reassigning him to a logistics role. But Bush found even that too troublesome and chose to stop showing up. After some complaining, his father stepped in once again, pulling strings to get him an early discharge. This episode exposed a defining pattern in Bush's life: a tendency to dodge responsibility and lean on powerful connections in critical moments. And it's a key reason why his eventual rise to the presidency sparked such complex reactions from the public. After leaving the military, Bush's golden boy journey didn't slow down. With the help of his father, he enrolled at Harvard Business School, preparing for a new chapter in the business world. But his time there was marked by the same underwhelming performance. He seemed far more invested in bar hopping and socializing than in mastering finance or business strategy. His post-Harvard business ventures confirmed as much. Armed with a $50,000 investment from his father, Bush set out to make a name for himself in Texas's booming oil industry. He had everything going for him: money, connections, and a family name that opened all doors. And yet, his company turned out to be a money-losing operation. But George W. Bush always understood one thing very clearly: as long as his father had power, he would never truly fail. As the 1980s began, George H. W. Bush's political career took off once again. He was chosen as Ronald Reagan's running mate on the Republican presidential ticket, and together they won the presidency. From then on, Bush served as vice president, providing substantial support to the Reagan administration and gradually cementing his influence both with the president and within the party. By the time Reagan sought re-election in 1984, Bush was once again nominated as vice president, and many saw him as the front-runner to succeed Reagan in the White House. In this favorable political climate, George W. Bush finally started to show a hint of ambition. His struggling oil company, which was barely hanging on, suddenly got a lifeline. A company called Spectrum 7 acquired it, and shortly thereafter, Spectrum 7 itself was bought out by the energy giant Harken Energy. Thanks to this chain of acquisitions, Bush walked away with a substantial financial gain, effectively flipping the narrative of his failed business ventures. From that point forward, Bush Jr.'s career began to sail smoothly. On the surface, it looked like he had finally found his footing, but insiders knew the truth: without a politically powerful father clearing the path, Bush Jr. would quietly disappeared from the scene long ago. In 1992, George H. W. Bush failed in his bid for re-election. His abrupt exit from the presidency marked the end of an era, and with it, the Bush family's aura of invincibility took a hit. Suddenly, George W. Bush could no longer live so comfortably in the shadow of his father's political glow. Sensing that the family's influence was waning, he decided it was time to step into the ring himself and enter politics directly. This shift greatly pleased the elder Bush. Seeing his son finally taking initiative and pursuing something real, the former president didn't hold back. He mobilized his entire political network, built over decades, to support his son's entry into politics. Thanks to this inherited infrastructure, seasoned campaign staff, key political endorsements, and deep party connections, Bush Jr. won his first ever political race, becoming the governor of Texas, despite being widely criticized for his lackluster intellect and mediocre qualifications. Even more unexpectedly, he won re-election in 1998, further legitimizing his position on the national political stage. Armed with executive experience, George W. Bush launched a bid for the presidency in the 2000 election. In what turned out to be one of the most dramatic and controversial elections in U.S. history, he narrowly defeated Democratic candidate Al Gore, ultimately becoming the 43rd President of the United States. When Bush entered the White House, the U.S. was at the height of its global dominance politically, militarily, and economically. The hardline policies of Reagan and George H. W. Bush had helped bring about the collapse of the Soviet Union, making the U.S. the world's sole superpower. The Gulf War, launched under Bush Sr., had decisively defeated Iraq, then considered the third most powerful military in the world, further reinforcing America's unrivaled status. Under Bill Clinton's administration, this dominance was institutionalized. Through globalization, supply chain strategy, and financial innovations, the U.S. embedded itself into the core of the world economy. This not only restored America's fiscal health and national debt position but also fueled years of economic expansion. Just as George W. Bush inherited this golden legacy, everything changed. In 2001, the September 11 terrorist attacks shocked the nation. It was the most devastating attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. Although it was a national tragedy, for Bush personally, it became a defining moment in his presidency. He responded with resolute force, instantly rallying the nation behind him. One moment, in particular, captured the country's heart, his impassioned speech standing on the rubble of the World Trade Center. It was a powerful image, Bush with a bullhorn in hand, promising justice and resilience, which transformed public perception of him overnight. Prior to 9/11, Bush had faced lingering questions about his legitimacy due to the contentious 2000 election results. But in the wake of the attacks, those doubts vanished. His approval ratings soared to a staggering 92%, setting a new record in U.S. presidential history.